Welcome back to another episode of the World of Averant. Last we talked about the beginning of the journey. We recapped about the Guardians and the Chosen One before, and then their adventure starting off. Making their way through their first trial, an unforeseen one, where they met a man named Valeris Vicari. Unknown what he wanted from them, he got it. Youth, power, and he disappeared as quickly as Seraphina was able to summon a power that she did not understand or never seen before. A lot of mysteries early in the adventure. Mysteries that was not expected. Who is Valeris? Where did I get these wings from? Who was contacting me? And how was he able to do the things that he did? Eventually, making their way to the town of Vrore. Now, Vrore itself is different than most. It's separated into two parts. Two towns, sort of. One is, as we mentioned, a town of darkness and night, but magical in its own way. Even though its darkness is not evil, it is actually of a clerical light. Blessed by arcane energy, as this is a town that is mostly made of clerics, maesters, monks. This was the temple for the House of the Nightwing, Liliel, the Angel of Night, blessing it long ago with unlimited sleep. Never letting the sun come inside, and therefore it has its own magic. Clerics that only use magic that base itself off darkness, but still holding radiance. Compared to name, Liliel was not a chaos god. She was a lawful good god. She believed in peace, and more than anything, she was one of the few gods that wished for the plague to end and let the world prosper. Few saw her true form. Liliel was depicted under a few different things, some being a large raven, others a woman in very thin veiled drapes, where you could barely see her facial structure underneath, but still see the figure. Others saw her as a drow, but of beautiful complexion and skin. She was all these, and more. After all, she's a god. She doesn't belong to one race, but she came from somewhere. Knowing this is the first town that the group had to attend, they took a beeline straight to Vrore as quickly as possible. Vrore itself immediately invited them. No one of their arrival and was expecting it. It held on to a very specific energy that it could never leave. The energy that you would retrieve there would be there only. The only thing could be retrieved from there was information. But that was their journey, was to get information to finally find that key, that ultimate weapon to stop the plague. Immediately on their first journey, they encounter these monks and maesters that immediately try to make them understand that weapons must be sheathed. We are not a war area. We have protected ourselves for many, many years with keeping weapons on our side. We intend that you do so as well. And they obliged. Now, the way that it works is the Chosen One's the only one who can truly speak to the gods. Obviously, clerics, paladins, different mages have their way of speaking to them. But to truly speak directly to them, a Chosen One must be picked. Therefore, Seraphina was the only one who was able to encounter the cloisters, a set of trials that were left for the gods to see if this Chosen One is truly who it was. And it was put in there for a reason. Obviously, Seraphina's brother failed, and therefore they revealed that he was not the firstborn. So they were deemed extra careful and cautious to make sure Seraphina was the true Chosen One. As the rest of the group had to hold back, knowing that their job is to protect Seraphina, but unfortunately they can't protect her in the trials. At least not these trials. Liliel told them that this set of trials is not for the faint of heart, but it is a set of trials that her guardians cannot protect her from. This is a test of her intellect, her specific character. The trial was simple. Go beneath the waterfall that holds the statue of Liliel. Enter the trials and fall into 3 doors, seeing what's inside. Now, she never saw Liliel. Liliel was only speaking to her through her statues. No one else could hear this, with the occasional maester, maybe hearing some words, but none of the group could. As Seraphina checks each door, she's able to figure out that this door, the 3 doors show her past, present, and future. But nothing that involves her. It shows the past, present, and future of the plague. And if the world goes the way it is, this is what it's supposed to set to be. Past, showing what the gods know of the plague thus far. They don't know how it was created, but she sees some of the previous Chosen Ones fight off against it and limit to the final battle where she cannot see what the final battle is. Present, her journey. Showing that Valeris plays some kind of key part in it. Something of the plague, something about him, havoc and joining factor. And in the future, if the world goes in the way that it's currently going, an apocalypse would happen that Seraphina cannot prevent. Not letting her know if she's a key or not. It's too early for the world, for the gods to determine if she is the correct one. They know she's the chosen one at this point, but they don't know if she is the chosen of the chosen. Is it her generation that will fix this? Or is it her generation will be the last one to survive before the plague decides to finally let loose? Reminding you that at this time, the plague itself has become erratic, unpredictable. Every generation before, it did its thing, moved a little bit further. The champions came through, slowed it down, put it to sleep. They made a sacrifice. 100 years later, it resumed and repeat. This time, it's almost angry. And it's gotten more aggressive. Sending out now its dragon, a gigantic ancient black dragon that is made of pure plague. Unknown if this was a dragon once upon a time or if this is a pure creation of the plague's will. But it's an extension like a hand reaching across a map. Parts that the plague cannot reach, the dragon flies to and obliterates in advance. Almost now knowing that when the dragon comes, even if the town is able to survive its wrath, the plague won't be short behind it. Stakes risen now. The 5 of these heroes not only must try to put asleep the plague, but it is on them to find the ultimate answer to the ultimate question. What is the plague? How do we destroy it? It's no longer, we need to put it to sleep. We need to kill it. And Seraphina knows it's more than that at this point. After going through the trial, Liliel approaches her. Now seen as the three versions put together, a bluish gray skinned drow female, gorgeous but hides some of her features, with a scaled corset on and draped leggings that drape like feathers, as if it's like her wings hanging down as a skirt. A veil over her head, just dark enough that you cannot see her facial structures, but light enough that you can see the coloration of her eyes. Two flowing drapes hanging up, resuming horns with a halo surrounding them, as she slowly glides down, sitting on an empty blanket of wind. Letting Seraphina know that we hope that this will work. I'm only the first of many you must speak to. I will be fair, and I want this to work. I will not hide you into riddles. But I must warn you, my brother will. I am the keeper of night and the rain that falls from it. I will help you. I'll magically enchant you to help your journey as best as possible. But I must warn you, the next you must speak is Raziel, my brother. It will be quite a journey for you to head his way. Raziel himself is one of mystery, and he has not been too comfortable giving out his information to humans, elves, and tritons. And he especially does not like half-breed. He'll challenge you. He'll try to kill you. But only as you succeed in all of his physical and mental challenges will he truly find you worthy of his knowledge. Until then, I can at least give you a gift. As she puts down both of her hands and enchants two items that glow within them. One a harp, glowing of a sapphire. Next is a black steeled short sword with blue edging. She looks at you. She hands down the harp. This is rainfall. Puts down the sword. This is nightfall. Use these wisely. And only you, as she blesses it upon Seraphina. As Seraphina is the only one that can use it. She can't sell it. She can't give it away. These are hers. A musical instrument and a first of her magical items. A sword given to her that becomes more powerful when water is touching it. Giving it a bit of strength absorbing water and allowing it to pull out more of a forceful attack. With the melody that comes from rainfall, allows you to manipulate the rain, whether it would stop the rain or become more hazardous, while also allowing you to hide within the water itself. Now the challenges we're only starting there. Their journey between there and Raziel's temple in Tiriok was long, difficult. Now, Tiriok itself was an interesting place. It did not belong to any country. It was one of the few locations that was its own property. Heartwind and Alkadai, they're connected through a pathway, but they're each their own countries. And this pathway is Tiriok. To cross on land from Heartwind to Alkadai and vice versa, you must cross through Tiriok. And Tyriak takes advantage of this, using import and export costs for able to transport back and forth, along with taxing to make their money. But the journey was long. Vrore itself was in the center of Heartwind, and to get their way up to Tyriak was a several-month journey. So they got provisions, started making their way to get ready, stopping at buildings and towns on their way, owning their skills and starting to understand each other, become friends, starting to try to understand the more complicated this can be. Where it started off as simple as, there are 5 of us, we will do what others have done before, and we will take this journey, do what needs to be done, and hold off for another 100 years. This got more complicated. A few people have a personal stake in this. Valerian wants to know more to figure out what has happened to her brother, and a little bit of revenge on the side. Gladlin has a personal stake in this himself due to his clan. And Seraphina wants to understand. She has no revenge against what happened to her brother. It was not the god's fault of what has happened. Her father and her brother became arrogant. They decided to manipulate the gods, and she knew better than to do that and to blame them for it. But things have gotten complicated for her. Someone's been helping her that she cannot see, communicating to her in her sleep, and enchanting her with power she doesn't understand, and she can't just randomly control. She knew how this power worked. She could extend the flame out of her body and fly like a phoenix in the air, giving herself a boost of strength, dexterity, and the healing magic that comes with it. But she didn't know how it got triggered. She couldn't randomly summon it. No one spoke to her about how it works. And she seemed that only it happened whenever someone in her group started to fall. And even then, she couldn't hold on to it long enough. And then whenever she did, after it was done, she was exhausted. Stamina was drained out of her body, and if she went into another battle, she would have most certainly lost. So this was a careful thing that she had to take into account. Also, why? Who's giving this to her? Is this her own power, or is someone blessing this upon her? She didn't have a specific patron. And even when she tried to sort of sideline and bring this up to Liliel, she had no idea of what she was talking about. Liliel explained, "You are Genasi. You are a fire Genasi. You do not fly." Whatever happened must have been a magical anomaly that I would most certainly guarantee would not happen again. But Seraphina knew. She knew it in her bones. Something else was at play here. Something that is not part of the plague or anything that's happened in this world. Something more specific to her. Now remember, Seraphina didn't know much about her heritage. There's only a few bedtime stories that her father told her, and mostly kept to that due to the fact that her stepmother did not want Seraphina's true heritage brought up. Remember that Seraphina's mother was not an evil person, but she will always resent Seraphina for being the firstborn of a family that existed before her. Seraphina knew a few things. She knew that her mother was not of this realm. She knew her mother was not of any races that exist in this realm. And she knew that her mother had to leave for both her, her father, and her own self. But she didn't know if her mother was alive. She just knew that she had to leave because she was becoming ill. Whatever the realm had was making her sick. She did not know her mother's name. and anytime she asked her father, it would only break him. So she has said to leave it alone. But with the developments, things got confusing. And even more confusing yet. For when they left Vrore, Vrore itself had a skyline that looked over the kingdom itself. Still a distance away, but as they decide to walk back over to get one last look at Castle Heartwind, before they decide to further go north and lose its vision, an alarming sight grabbed their attention. Smoke. Fire. Between the time that they left and now, something happened. The castle was on fire, but at this point it must have been fire for so long that it is now just smoke. Black in the sky, so wide that even though they are tens of miles away, they can see it. Two sides of Seraphina immediately screaming out, wondering what has happened. In distance, all they could see is that the colors of the banners of the castle have changed. But they couldn't see who. Someone came in and destroyed her home while she was gone, and she can only imagine what has happened. But her two sides thought about it. Seraphina was logical, and she knew she had a path, and two parts of her screaming. One was the child whose home is getting destroyed, and she wanted to run back as quickly as possible to see what happened. The other part knew that no matter how much her personal stake has in this, she must persevere on, and only hope to the gods that whatever happened, her family is safe. As their guardians got closer as friends, they comforted her. But she was fragile at this point. There's only so much she could handle. She was still young. And even this great journey was a lot for someone her age. She was physically trained and she did all the work mentally. But she was not prepared for something like this. Who can be? So they persevere on. And where dreams have always encountered her in her sleep, now laid nightmares. Night after night, she has dark dreams. Mind wandering of what has happened. Every dream indicating the worst case scenario. My parents dead. Who's left? Is anyone left? Who took it over? Who destroyed it? Until they hit one town. Now, at this point, months have gone. It's almost 6 months that have passed. They have dealt with raiders, thieves, and many simple battles that they can face. With the exception of fighting off Valerius, they've been dealing with the normal ruffians. And they are short to getting to Tirac. They hit a town. Decided to take a break after a long journey. A town that is close to the lakefront, the ocean side itself. And many things happen for everyone. Again, 6 months have passed. Their friendship has grown tighter. They have become more of a true team, learning about ins and outs. But when they hit this town, a couple things have developed. As they decided to take several days of a break, thinking that Seraphina just needs to relax. Valerian is starting to have gotten stressed over something, and Gladden himself has just begun getting tired. Norn and Vrore each are getting their own ways of getting exhausted, but just new to just traveling for so long. Each person just needed a mental break, and therefore they hit a town that would do so. Nothing big, a few days off. There is no timestamp of when this gets to be done, just so long as it gets done within a year. When they hit this town, several things happen. As they're walking around, the local news of sorts hits throughout papers. Parchment about the Heartwind Kingdom is posted everywhere. That the Lord and Lady of the Castle Heartwind have fallen. And that is currently taken. Heartwind is now in control by what are called the Highborns, a specific group of people that believe themselves to be their own country. Mostly humans, but half-breeds, much like Seraphina. Ones that are angelic or demonic, many tieflings and Azamars. Ones that believe themselves to be closer to gods and devils themselves, that believe they have the right to take what is theirs. Mostly nobles and people of rich birth. And this only started breaking Seraphina more. This wasn't Nelithir. This wasn't Aberrus that came in to make a power play. This was a random group of highborns. People like her that came in to take what they believed was theirs. As she ran and they go scream into her pillow, she heard a voice and a sudden urge of comfort. She looks up to see a beautiful red-skinned genie that she was ever to recognize as her mother. Coming down to speak to her, reminding her of who she is, and reminding her that death is not the end. Much conversation ensued, but she told her what she needed to hear. I'm neither dead nor alive. I live in a world that you cannot experience, at least not yet. I can both help you, but I cannot be here forever. I am the one who blessed these wings upon you, but I cannot teach you how to use them. You must learn yourself. Your father, his men, they taught you how to fight. You taught yourself the world. I will help you live. And she explained to her the powers of the Phoenix, an ancient creature that belonged to the fire genies. A way of ascending. This wasn't a power she could hold on forever, but she gave her a piece of it. But she couldn't be along. After minutes, she had to be pulled back. Given Seraphina enough attachment to somebody that she was able to at least grasp on the hope. She lost her father, but her mother is still there. At the same time, they all decided to reconvene. get a couple drinks, and start moving on. They start progressing throughout the town and heading over to a shortcut that take them away from the main path and cut along the coastline. It would take a bit longer to get over to Tirok, but it allowed them peace and comfort, stress from the others. As they start coming across, Rin started to feel a pain, a migraine, until she immediately looked out into the ocean line. She saw two eyes hovering over the water itself. She just looked and she could feel a presence that she has not felt in so long. That she could feel an energy coming from it that was familiar to her brother. Until she just saw him standing on the water in the distance. On some small mound. Standing there but looked different. He was armored, looked of paladin. But empty stare. As he telepathically communicated to Rin. No. Leave. Simple words. Basic language. Telling her to go. And when she stayed, he started moving closer. His body not shifting, but the mound moving closer. Until it lifts up that you see that he is riding on top of a dragon's head. Until it got closer enough to see this is her brother, but something else. Whatever it is, this is the rider of the plague dragon. And that's where we're going to leave it for the night. Now, this covers many episodes. At this point, we're about episode 25. And the reason why we're moving so fast is because we don't need to go over every conversation that's been had. Through their several episodes that they had, they went through simple battles. And we don't need to go over every single one. The main talking points is the plague, the dragon, the king, Seraphina's personal problems, and all the other characters' personal problems, along with bringing up Valeris Vicari. He'll come up shortly. So, I hope you enjoyed. Next Friday, Tirok, and all that lays in between. Hope you can tune in. Otherwise, everyone